So this week's video is going to be all about how we graze our cows, what I've learned about grazing cows, and how much of a mess we're making in 2024. We also bought a new bull this week. It's from Red House Holsteins. It's a really nice looking bull. Very, very happy with him. Right, let's get these cows out. I have to run down in front of them because there's a single strand of wire preventing them from breaking into like 20 acres. So it's good exercise. Why is it doors are never easy to open? I will explain why I'm destroying my fields shortly, but I've got to get down in front of these cows. Oh, I'm out of breath already. I promise I'm way fitter than this. It's just the stress of talking and letting the cows out and running. It's just a bad combination. But you will have seen we let our cows out over 2 weeks ago. They were out for a grand total of 3 days and back in again. And I did let them out yesterday and they destroyed the field. Like, I mean, destroyed the field. They're gaining on me. On the left, we have the field we grazed almost 2.5 weeks ago. It's recovered pretty nicely. You wouldn't know it had been pretty badly poached. And on the right is the field the cows are going into today. And the cover of grass is ridiculous. It's basically a silage sword. Hopefully when they run into the field today, they actually eat the grass, because yesterday they just ran in circles for 3 hours. That's what you want to see when you're grazing cows. Them going into the field and eating the grass and not just running about. So I'm pretty sure that I will have used a photo of the field I destroyed yesterday. That's the thumbnail for the video, and I'll put on a title to something like, I've destroyed my fields, or something like that. Something to get people to click on the video, because I have learned from the last few months of doing YouTube and speaking to other people who've given me really good advice that all that matters is your thumbnail or title, and that should be your main focus. So when I seen the destroyed field yesterday evening, I didn't think, oh no, what have I done? Instead I thought, that's a great thumbnail for a YouTube video. Well, let me show you some footage from yesterday morning, which I recorded for a TikTok video that I never had time to edit, so I never posted. And then that will give me some credibility that I'm not just making up what I'm about to say, and it's actually part of a plan. I'm sacrificing this field. The cows are going in here today and they are going to make a mess of it, but I'm going to spray Roundup on it at the end of the week and hopefully get it ploughed at the end of next week. It has been 2 weeks since the cows were last out, and our milk yields are down, we're using up all our silage, and the grazing paddocks are getting way ahead of us. So I'm done messing around. The cows are going out, rain or shine. So to summarise, I knew the cows were going to go out and make a mess of whatever field I put them into yesterday. And I could have chosen a drier field like this one, or the really dry fields like the ones that were reseeded last year. They would have made a little bit of a mess, but it wouldn't have been disastrous. But instead, I chose the field which was going to be sprayed off at the end of this week and ploughed anyway. So it doesn't matter that the cows spent 3 hours running in circles yesterday. And I'm pretty sure I said this in my YouTube video 2 or 3 weeks ago when I put the cows out. The first day, your cows will always make a mess. And because our cows had been in for 2 weeks and only been out for 3 days, I basically had to do that first day all over again. So it was important to choose a field that I was willing to let be damaged. So just for contrast, when I put the cows out yesterday, they proceeded to run laps round and round the field, start fighting, jumping, going crazy. So that's why I didn't want to put them in here on the first day. The covers in this field are so much that they would have dirtied it all, tramped it all, and grazed absolutely nothing. So this morning is the last bit of rain we are meant to get for like a week. So we finally have some dry weather coming in the forecast. So I can understand people's argument that they might say, well, why do you not just wait a couple more days until the ground dries out and you won't cause as much damage and you'll still get out grazing just a couple of days later? Well, while I understand that argument, it's kind of missing an important point, which is when grass growth gets past the cows, it is an absolute nightmare to catch up again. So 4 or 5 extra days grazing, even if you do some damage to the ground, is the smarter decision in my opinion, because you get further around your rotation, you can get back into paddocks like this before they turn into silage swords again. Because that's the challenge now, is to make it round the entire rotation as fast as possible, get the heavy covers et off, so I can get back into decent, proper covers again, where it should be in 3 or 4 weeks. And believe me, if it gets good weather at the end of April, start of May, and we're getting like 17, 18, 19, 20 degrees sunny days, the grass growth is just gonna explode, and it is gonna catch so many people out, and it's gonna make grazing worse than destroying fields by poaching. Chase the rest of these cows down and close them in. Just like with making silage, grazing is all about compromises. There is very few perfect conditions where everything is just correct, and you will very often have to make a choice between 2 bad options. And yesterday, that's exactly what I done. I made a choice between 2 bad options. And my choice, I think, was the best choice, because that field's going to be ploughed, it's going to be reseeded. So what have I really lost? None of them excuses and arguments make up for the fact that I destroy a field and you still think I'm an idiot. Well, I have another thing to say, which is that Tom Pemberton told me to do it. And one of the things I really like about Tom's videos is that he shows the bad bits. He doesn't just show what makes him look good. He is just honest and shows everything. And I'll be honest, I enjoy the times when stuff goes wrong more than seeing when things go right. I'm going to guess that's them all because I can't be bothered walking all the way up to the house and walking down again. So if there's any left, I'll just chase them back into the house. This is an extremely dodgy way to tie a gate. But it happens more often than you'd think. That'll hold 180 cows in, won't it? Now, because the covers are so heavy and I'm trying to get it grazed down as best as I can, they've actually got a very small area for the 180 cows today. So it might look good now, I promise you, when I'm bringing them in the season, that field's not going to look great. But again, there's no perfect decision. You have a choice between 2 bad decisions, and you just have to make the best of it. After lunch, I'm going to talk about why we graze our cows, how much money do we make from grazing our cows, how we graze our cows effectively, what I learned over the years to get as much money out of grazed grass as possible. But before we get to that, I'm going to catch my breath first of all. I honestly don't know why talking and walking exhausts me so much. I think I need to start running or something. But anyway, before we get to that, I'm going to go and take you and show you the field that I destroyed yesterday. Oh no, I did forget a cow. Right, back into the house. Come on, shh. Come on, shh. Come on, shh. Do you know what I would actually really love, just to make a full video ranting about how awful the last 6 or 7 months has been in farming. Flip my life, it's like never ending problems from like June on. It's just been such a pain to be a farmer. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pretend that it's positive and just mentally block out all of the problems of the last couple of months. But just in case you're someone who's a dairy farmer watching this farm is no different to yours. It has been a nightmare for the last couple of months. Let's get to the bit you're all here for, the field that I destroyed. So the cows proceeded to stand here for like 2 hours at one point, and then they finally went back to like half grazing. It did also rain most of the day yesterday, even though the forecast said it was dry. What other excuses can I use? No, that's basically it. That's all my excuses used up. It's a pretty depressing sight. I was actually worried whenever I sort of glanced at this yesterday evening that it was going to be too wet to get in here and spray it off tomorrow or Saturday, but it's actually firmer underfoot than I thought so. It's a shame that there was so much grass on it, because I give them the entire field. They normally only get half a field, because I knew I was going to get one chance to destroy it, and that was it. And then I wanted to get the cows into some decent grass to try to get the milk yield up again. We'll chat about milk yield and dropping and stuff at the end whenever I'm talking about why we graze cows, but it's actually not that bad. I know I'm going to heaps of comments of people being like, that's awful, what do you mean that's not bad? Believe me, I have done this every other year when I put the cows out for the last like 5 or 6 years. Tramping fields is kind of like a sign you know what you're doing. Does that make sense? No one's going to buy that, but it genuinely, that kind of is true. So I'm going to get this killed off with Roundup. Hopefully, it's probably going to be Saturday, to be honest. It does give a good day. There's very little wind. Ideal for spraying off a field. And then end of next week, the plan is to get this ploughed. And there's a good chance that I might actually get it reseeded within the next 10 days. Now I know at the minute, with the weather we've had for the last couple of months, that's extremely maybe unlikely, but if we get little to no rain for 10 days, the difference that will be made at the point in April we're at will be incredible. So I want to get this reseeded, get good grass seed back into it, get rid of all the damage and compaction, and in 2 or 3 months, probably 3 months, no, 2 months, it'll be 2 months. In 2 months, I'm going to put my cows in here, and it's going to be a totally clean field of brand new grass, shining in the sun, with the cows happily grazing. And I'll be saying, do you remember that field I destroyed? And you all said I was a moron. Oh, look at it now, and all I done was miss one rotation. Anyway, I have a lot to do this morning, so I am going to finish this video this evening. I'm going to talk about why we graze our cows, why it's important, the benefits it provides, the downsides of grazing cows, which is pretty obvious, and what I've learned about grazing cows over the years. And I was going to say try to give people some advice, but I mean, can I really give people advice on grazing cows? Ah, sure, why not? I might as well. Okay, so welcome back to like part 2 of this week's video. It is now 3:45, so I think I last left you off about 11 o'clock this morning. Quite a lot's happened since you were last here. Cows came in about 2 hours ago, so I brought them in at 1 o'clock. They done a surprisingly good job of grazing out the field. Got most of the grass off, so happy with that. They did do more damage than I was expecting, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I mean, it's pretty bad. I should have brought my camera down, but I forgot it, and I was in a mad rush, and I wasn't about to turn around and go for my camera because all the cows had spotted me and were standing at the gate waiting to get out. So unfortunately, I didn't get the footage of them coming out of the field, but I'm going to walk a bit down this lane and at least give you a shot from a distance as to what the field looks like. So it doesn't look that bad, and it's pretty obvious they did do a good job of grazing it, but it's more damaged than it looks from a distance. When I was bringing the cows in, there was a cow actually broke into this forest through a very, very bad fence, and just by chance I happened to have some students come from a local school who wanted to do some jobs around the farm, some repairing jobs, fixing things for their coursework. So I got them to fix this fence for me. I didn't have to do it myself. I'll show you their handiwork. So I'd say they done a very good job. I mean, it's a wee bit wobbly, but there's no cow going through that. You're kidding me. The boats are a bigger size. We will finish this video off here beside my plough as I fit new points to it, because I'm clearly going to need this over the next few months. So why do I graze my cows? Well, the number one reason, and by far the most important reason for me, is that it is way less work. And yes, the guys who are housed all year will argue that having your cows housed is actually less work than grazing. Believe me, it's not. One of the benefits of being housed for half the year and grazing the other half of the year is that you know which is easier, which is less work, which is more enjoyable work, and grazing is just so much better than having cows in the house. Not only is grazing cows less work, it is also different work. And I love the transition from winter to spring, and I also love the transition from late summer, early autumn into winter. Over the winter, we probably spend about 2 hours a day feeding, scraping, and bedding the cows. In the summer, when it comes to grazing, that's probably cut in half to about an hour a day of bringing the cows in, chasing the cows out, and moving fencing wires. Second reason is much less important to me personally, but it is also a good reason to graze your cows, and that is your cost of production, cost of feeding your cows, cost of producing milk is a lot lower. I have worked out the difference between housed and grazing before, and in a normal year, we make somewhere between 60 and £100 a day more money by grazing our cows. That savings coming from three main areas. Number one, our milk yield goes up. When we put our cows out 2 weeks ago, our milk yield went up by 2 litres per cow. It doesn't always happen, but it often happens. The other saving is we can cut our feed rate back. When I put the cows out 2 weeks ago this year, I cut the feed rate back from 0.35 kilos to 0.32 kilos. I've actually held that feed rate, even though the cows were back in the house. Probably a bad decision to do that, but it does save you concentrate, save you meal over the year. Grazing cows also saves you money because grazed grass is significantly cheaper than silage. It's slightly over half the price per tonne of making good silage. Grazing cows also saves you on bedding costs, which is not insignificant this year. And finally, it also saves you on slurry spreading costs because the cows do all that for you. Grazing is key to us having a low cost system, and I am 100% convinced if I decided to house my cows all year round, my cost of production per litre would go up. And they always get stuck in the flipping socket. Anyway, that's why we graze our cows. So now I'm going to give you a very short summary of how we graze our cows. And I'm going to base this on a normal year. I'm not going to base this on 2024 because none of this has worked so far in 2024. The key to successfully grazing cows is getting them out early and getting your rotation started properly. If you graze heavy covers like I am currently, your milk yield will go down and not up when you go out to grass. Getting your first rotation done early matters so much for subsequent rotations. If you can get your cows in to graze the sward down low, your regrowth is better, and that makes it easier to graze it low the following time, so it's easier to graze it low the third time. It's a giant knock-on effect. The difference in quality of grazing grass at the right stage and the wrong stage is even more evident than cutting silage at the right or wrong stage. General rule of thumb I like to use for grazing is you should always feel like you're just about to run out of grass, but not actually run out. We have a very high stocking rate on our grazing block of 6 cows a hectare. So the way that we manage variations in grass growth is that we feed silage all year. We manage to graze on average about 220 days a year, but we only get the cows out for about 100 nights a year. I definitely see a lot of benefits from buffer feeding or keeping the cows in at night a large amount of the year. It just gives you more flexibility to adjust to grass growth, and we will very, very rarely ever have to take grass out as surplus through bales or putting it into the pit. Feeding silage also ensures that we're never restricting the cows too much and affecting their feed intakes, which will have a very significant, quick effect on milk yields. We never measure grass, don't use a plate meter. I know that's sacrilege to some people, but it's a waste of time. You don't need to do it. So that's why we graze our cows and how we graze our cows. And when we're comparing grazing to silage, I would say that there is much less to focus on when it comes to grazing cows. You're much more at the mercy of the weather and the year. Whereas with silage, there is so much that is in your control that you can make a difference with, and it's actually much less affected by the weather. Before we finish this video, I also got a load of fertilizer delivered today, so I'll give you a little run through as to what I plan to sow, spread, whatever you want to call it, over the next few months. I am preparing for a drought and there not being enough rain to use my urea, so I got 10 tonnes of can and it was just under £300 a tonne, which I thought was pretty good value. I also bought 2 tonnes of ammonium sulphate, that is 210060, and that is going to be applied to our grazing block and provide the sulphur for the year. This is a product I've never used before called polysulphate. It is 001448 sulphur. So the 6 tonne I think I bought, 4 tonne, the 4 tonne of polysulphate is going to provide the sulphur for all of my silage ground this year. It must be seriously dense because they're half-tonne bags and they look like they're half empty. I also have lots of urea left. I actually bought this last June. I think I paid $385 for it and I could have bought it this spring for $380. So that was definitely a mistake. Shouldn't have bought it, but I still have quite a lot of that left. My big concern now with the urea is that we're going to get dry weather, so I can't use it until it becomes wet again. I know that seems hard to believe at this point, but it could happen. That's why the can's there. In another silage pit, I also have some more muriate of potash left and a little bit of diammonium phosphate. So that's kind of my fertilizers I'm using this year. Urea and can for my nitrogen, muriate of potash and polysulphate for my potassium, ammonium sulphate and polysulphate for my sulphur, and if I need any phosphorus, I'm going to use my diammonium phosphate. And again, a lot of this is influenced by the fact that I have 2 fertilizer sowers, which makes mix and matching all of these products much easier. I really should work out how much I'm saving by buying straights over a compound, but that's for another video. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll catch up with you next week. Hopefully we'll be out in the fields. There's a chance I might even be ploughing next week if I get my points fitted to my plough and it dries up a lot, but we'll not get ahead of ourselves. Drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and if you really liked it, consider subscribing. It definitely helps. And any comments, criticisms, abuse for destroying a perfectly good field, stick it down in the comments. I look forward to hearing from you.